Life after Torrijos. No one in the military command was prepared for Torrijos' death. He was our leader, and his charismatic style dominated the military institution. It was as if we lived under a paternalistic umbrella in which certain basic tenets, the structure, style, and substance of our lives, were all taken for granted. I was certainly content with the status quo, and I assumed the other members of the command were as well. After all, there was no thought of a time when he might not be our leader. Succession, style, and command structure were not things we talked about. There was an established order of succession. First Flores, Paredes, Colonel Armando Contreras, then me. My life was organized within that system. I actually was younger and had fewer years of service than many other officers. I was content with the pace of my career. Flores took over as interim leader without a struggle, as if Torrijos was still guiding the system. His ascent was the natural order of things. Flores was the son of a famous leader of the Panamanian National Police and was a graduate of the Nicaraguan Military Academy in the time of General Anastasio Somoza. He was a simple soul, calm-spirited, a good athlete. He tried to maintain a good relationship with everyone he came in contact with, to make friends wherever he could. Flores was not up to the job of commander. He had difficulty assuming the place of such a dominant personality as Torrijos. He didn't feel like the commander, nor did he adopt the title due him, General of the National Guard. He retained the rank of colonel like the rest of us and didn't even move into Torrijos' vacant office, which remained as a kind of ghostly reminder of him. At first, there was no problem. In the weeks after Omar's death, we closed ranks, much like a family pulls together after a parent dies. The survivors cooperate to keep the house and the family structure intact. Each of us had his job to do, concentrating on maintaining the system as Torrijos intended it. That structure, after all, was the only one we knew. After a while, though, as in any family, reality set in. The guiding force of Torrijos' leadership grew dim. Flores was unable to remain in power. On March 3, 1982, Paredes, next in the chain of command, was promoted to general and assumed the post of commander-in-chief, which had seemed vacant ever since Torrijos' death. I was never close to Paredes. Rather, our relationship was that of superior officer to subordinate. He had been in the military longer than I, and it was always assumed that he would be commander first. He was capable of great loyalty to his friends and family. He held his family, particularly his sons, as all-important in his life. Immediately after becoming commander, Paredes set about his further goal of becoming president of Panama. Late in 1982, he summoned Contreras, me, and Diaz Herrera to a meeting where he declared his plans, along with a twist. He said he would resign his command in early 1983 so that he could run for the presidency the following year. But, he said, Contreras would not be his replacement. Contreras has come to the moment when he must retire, he said. Noriega will take over the command. I don't know how Paredes had decided this or whether anyone else knew. I can only say that this was a total surprise and the first time I had heard that I would be bumped to the head of the line. Ultimately, Paredes failed to garner the support he needed and his presidential candidacy collapsed. On August 12, 1983, 2 years after the death of Torrijos, I assumed the rank of general and commander-in-chief of the National Guard. It was undoubtedly my proudest day. My power came as a result of the Revolution of 1968, after which a new constitution was promulgated, stating that the government shall exercise power in harmony jointly with the National Guard. The armed forces were designated to uphold the affairs of state so that laws could be enacted and carried out. It was a division of efforts: bureaucratic administration, paperwork, and economic theory. International relations and protocol were handled by the President of the Republic. Internal affairs, civil defense, emergency management, and labor relations were handled by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. This Panamanian structure had historical roots. Since the foundation of the Republic of Panama, the administration of Panama was of key concern and interest to the United States. Having a commander-in-chief in charge of public order, blessed by the United States, made the canal a lot easier to control. The United States essentially imposed the structure and personality of the Panamanian government from the very beginnings of the country in 1903. In Panama, civilian and military power were condemned to work hand in hand. I had learned this by studying Panama's past. Throughout our history, politicians have fallen back on the military as the final arbiter. Faced with the indecision of the civilians, the failure to get to the root cause of the problems in the country, we saw the civilian power structure turn time and again to the military. As a young officer, I remember many labor strikes in which the civilians were unable to take decisive action. They turned to the National Guard. We were the ones who had the contacts within the unions, who would be able to establish a dialogue with the union leaders, prevent strikes, and look for solutions to their problems. This gave us a natural leadership role. This is no surprise considering Panamanian history. What we call the traditional political parties are really interest groups founded by the wealthy families, who were always allied with the United States. Their overtures to the masses were confined to election time, when they were forced, as we say, to bathe in populist waters. Compare that with the Democratic Revolutionary Party, founded by the military under Torrijos, where the base of support was the people. They were accustomed to having direct contact with their leadership. In any case, I had a clear vision of my power in terms of Panama. I understood the politics. I understood my base of support, both within the military and among the masses. But what I did not accept was receiving orders from the Americans, nor did I accept being subordinated to the caprice and interests of Panama's economic power brokers.